Hello, everyone. I'm Temple Hayes, and thank you for listening to The Intentional Spirit. I'm so excited to have our wonderful guest today, TJ Woodward. I've been following and listening to him and his ideas for many, many years. And if you're not aware of him, I know that now you will be, and you'll want to follow him. He is a mover and shaker, and we are reaching people all over the world. And TJ, I know that you at one time had a very active, well listened to show on Unity Online FM. So those people that are very familiar with you are in conscious recovery. Catch us up. Tell us what you've been up to.
Well, thank you, Temple, and I'm so honored to be on your show. I know there are people listening all over the world, and I love that. I think I had two different shows on Unity Online Radio. One was called Awakened Living, and then one was called Conscious Being, which is the name of my first book. And I'm thinking it's been a while because my book came out in 2015, so I think that's around the time I had the show. So it is wonderful to be back after a decade to be on your show. And I mean, so much has happened since then. I introduced my second book, Conscious Recovery, which has become in so many ways my primary or one of my primary focuses of my work, taking profound new thought principles of wholeness, of oneness, of infinite potential into the recovery space. And that has been quite a journey for the past decade. So it's just been an incredible journey. And now I'm launching something new, Unharmable, documentary. I have a talk show. It's going to feature some incredible people, including this wonderful human named Temple Hayes. She's going to be one of the thought
I've,
leaders
I've
on the
heard of her.
documentary.
I've
I've heard
actually
of her
heard of
too.
her. Well, as you know, you and I are like a year apart in recovery, right? I'm 39 years this September, and you are 40
I
or
just turned 40 on June 8th. Yeah, 40
okay,
years sober. Yeah.
absolutely. So I was so excited. So I would like to, if it's okay with you, kind of break down some of the things that you're doing. So with the second book, Conscious Recovery, I heard one time um, a saying, find a need and fill it.
Hmm.
And AA, they say don't reinvent the wheel. AA and the life of AA and all that is so necessary. And it helps so many people that need that kind of support, outline, feeling like I just got to have it, whatever all that is. And it's very successful. However, there are also millions and millions of people that are in recovery, but they were desperate or looking for a different way. That they looked at the higher way of consciousness. They looked at, okay, I've kind of done that already. I've kind of had to explain myself and apologize and ask for forgiveness, for years and years of 15 years of being kind of half there from being a drunk. I really don't want to keep doing that, right? And I remember how excited I was when you came out with the book. And now it is like a movement. Literally, is it in other countries? I know it's all over the US.
Yes, it's all over the US and it's in the UK as well.
That's right, the UK.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've had the honor of speaking the last 3 years at three different conferences in London, and I'll be speaking this year again in London. The UK has been very hungry for this message, and I love what you're saying because my experience of getting into recovery was there was this moment where there was a longing for something more, something deeper in consciousness. And in my own journey, how that showed up for me, I got sober in 1986, and in 1987, maybe, someone handed me this little magazine called The Daily Word. And
Oh,
I started
yes.
reading that, and I just became kind of obsessed with it. Interestingly enough, I didn't even know it was associated with this thing called unity. I had no idea. I was just reading the Daily Word, and then at some point, I became aware of that and I went to my first unity. And that's really where the transformation, the deeper transformation began. So it was like taking the wisdom from 12 steps that I had experienced that had saved my life, and then adding this layer of depth of consciousness in. And for me, the key point and the essence of conscious recovery, the foundation is we're not broken. And I felt
Yeah.
so broken when I got sober. And I honestly, Temple, it was much more painful the first year or so because I wasn't numbing out that experience. And I met a woman who just took me on this incredible spiritual journey of reconnecting with my wholeness while simultaneously finding unity. So it became my greatest desire when I wrote Conscious Recovery to offer this message to people who were in that now what moment. I've been doing this. Like you said, I've made the amends, I've done the steps, I've done the things I'm supposed to do, but there's a deeper longing for purpose, for meaning, for a deeper connection, and mostly a shift from a brokenness paradigm to what if underneath all my behavior, there's still this essential place of wholeness.
Oh, yes. Yes. And there's something, well, that was a mouthful. That was a lot, meaning um it touched so much within me is the way I don't think I've practiced talking that much today. I'm like blah, 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 blah. Anyway, um it's so true. I resonate so deeply, and I always have, with your messaging and your teaching about conscious recovery, because we did feel, I mean, for me, it was a Southern Baptist, a gay girl. It's the family no longer making eye contact with me. It's the, oh, walking in a room and you just felt like, oh boy, they're going, oh, there's that gay girl, that tomboy, there's the this, the that. And I've gotten a lot of attention all my life, like you have, and I'm a Leo, and I know it's not all bad. But just keep in mind the perspective that I'm coming from is about the recovery part, that I already looked in the mirror and felt like I was broken. I didn't need to go to a meeting every day and talk more about that. I needed that wellspring. I needed that restoration, that resurrection of my spirit that said, you are whole, you are holy, you are wonderful, you are beautiful. I needed a lot of that to be able to absorb it so I could stand in a place and then tell my woundology story and have self-esteem about it instead of feeling zapped or down or all of that. I remember a young boy. I may have told you this in one of our friendship calls. A young boy came to the campus I was serving and said, well, I know you're sober and I want to get sober. He's like 19. And he said, but isn't it hard?
Hmm.
And I said, well, to me, let me tell you what hard was. Hard was I didn't remember where I left my car. Hard was I had to call a friend and fake the conversation because I knew at sometime in the night I was around them, but I blacked out and I didn't remember anything else. So I didn't want to say that, so I had to play this game of pick and choose. And how did you have a good time last night? Hard is when the police officer stops you because you've driven your car up a place where there's not a road, and they're chasing you, and then eventually you stop because you hit a tree, and they ask you your name and you say, I don't know.
Right.
Now that's hard. And oh, I slept with somebody and I had sex and I don't remember a minute of it. And I can't even believe I did it because if I had not been drunk, it would have never happened. Son, that's hard.
Yeah.
Being awake, being alive, feeling every moment, there's nothing hard about it. It's just like a breeze, really.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I love that story. I have heard you say it, and I really deeply resonate with it because my early recovery was like, oh my gosh, I had been living the most difficult life of secrets, of hiding, of wondering what happened. How do I possibly scrape together the rent because I spent it all on drugs and alcohol, all of that. And then there's even something deeper that adds to that, and that is hard is trying to escape a reality that's a false narrative to begin with,
Mhm.
trying to escape this sense of brokenness, this belief that I'm separate from, I'm not good enough, and I'm not worthy. And that existential pain I was in for many years in my childhood. And then drugs and alcohol brought relief. And I thought I had discovered, there's a reason we call alcohol spirits. I thought I had tapped into the greatest spiritual thing ever. And of course, we've all heard it didn't keep working that way. The deepest pain I've ever experienced is when I absolutely knew that what I was doing wasn't bringing relief from this pain, but I couldn't stop or didn't know I could stop. That's the deeper pain, that sense of, oh my gosh, I'm going to keep trying to find someone or something outside of myself to assuage this sense of brokenness. That to me was the deepest pain. And then getting sober was like, oh, this is wonderful. And then around a year, 18 months sober, all the stuff that I hadn't yet addressed was coming to the surface, and I was back in that experience of deeper pain. So it's a kind of a both and for me. It's like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
yes, it's much easier to be sober. And then it became really difficult. That's when I found unity, the daily word, and my mentor, Mary Helen, who took me on this journey. And then I discovered a sense of freedom that I never knew possible. And I'm like, oh my gosh, everything I was seeking in the drugs and alcohol was really something that was inherently true about me. And
Well,
that became a
oops.
completely different way of living.
Oh yeah. And it's so incredible how similar some of our story is in that, well, I started at Unity when I was like 19 and drank all the way through it until I got sober in ministerial school. And so,
Perfect.
like nine years later. However, I believe that's well stated because that probably was my AA, right? Because
Mhm.
I went to every class I could take. I went to every therapist that would have me, and I really immersed into the real me, the root of me, the what my soul came here to be. But I was very active like you were, with the daily word, and for me it was science of mind, religious science, which is now called the Centers for Spiritual Living. But I just immersed in that so much. Um, in that way. And that, like you said, I think we've laughed about it before. I really thought, oh, I convinced myself, gosh, I've had so many problems because I drink. So when I stop drinking, I won't have any problems. I probably had more, but I felt every one of them.
That's right. That's the cliche, right? When you get sober, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel everything better. And
Right.
that was my experience. And then as you were speaking, I was hearkening to my own deepening experience, which was in 2005 at 40 years old when I had the call to go into ministry. And I had my 20s was a deep spiritual quest, going to India, studying Buddhism, doing chanting, meeting Amma, going to her ashram in India. I mean, all the things that I was doing as a
Hmm.
spiritual seeker in my 20s, including unity. And then at 30, I kind of pivoted to a little bit more of an external life and went into my fabulosity. And at 40, there was this deep yearning and knowing that I wanted to, in some way, become a spiritual teacher. And I was at Unity at the time, and I started taking classes at Unity. And once I said yes to this call to go into ministry, everything fell apart. And I knew it was divine. I knew everything was falling apart because it was chemicalization. It was the
Yes.
higher consciousness coming in. So my path at going to, 5 years at Unity Village off and on and taking classes in the field, that was my deepening experience where I got to do, I guess, really some deeper consciousness work.
Oh, yeah.
Love being with Paul Hasselbeck during that time, who made his transition not long ago. And he was an incredible teacher to me, partially because we would debate each other, and he loved debating. That was always fun. But there was something that happened in going to school for those 5 years that changed everything for me as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I just totally feel that. And didn't you do another book after Conscious Recovery?
I did. Conscious Creation is my third book, and that was looking at how we shift our life from unconscious to conscious creation. And it was through my experience in that 20-year mark, right? That 20-year sober, 40-year-old mark, and going to Unity and things falling apart, and then me really diving into how do I shift my life from unconscious creation of letting the programs that I had absorbed run my life to becoming more conscious. And I actually created a 5-step process to conscious creation that I used an acronym. And I promised myself I'd never be that person that has the 4-step or 5-step, but I did it. And I like it because it gives the mind something to
I
engage
do
in.
too. Yeah, I do too. And it's very, you also do a once a year event that specialists, experts, people with sober life experiences gather from all over the world. Um, Tell us all about that. I'm not sure the timing of when someone is listening in because it's in September, correct?
It's in October this year. We moved it
Oh,
to
well, then
October.
it's perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so
should be
tell us
good.
all about Emergence.
Yeah, my friend Jeremy Miller and I, and our friend Jen Carvalho, all who have worked in the addiction treatment field for many, many years, got together in 2020 during, this time in the country and in the world where there was so much division and so much polarization and people in a lot of fear. And we were asking, how do we create an environment or an experience for deep healing and connection?
Hmm.
And we really visioned and sat with and contemplated and meditated on what wanted to emerge. And when we said that, we're like, oh, that's the name, Emergence. So in 2021, once we were allowed to do in-person events again, in the fall of 2021, we launched our first Emergence Conference. And although it is geared toward people working in behavioral health, it is certainly for anyone on a healing journey, especially anyone who is a healer, because we provide a space that is really different than a lot of what you think of as a conference, right? So when I go to a conference, there's a PowerPoint, there's learning, there's education, and all that is wonderful. But this is about having a deeper experience and creating a space where healers can come in and do their own healing. Two
Oh,
days,
yeah.
Marina Del Rey, no PowerPoints, no breakout sessions, just really immersive, dropping in deep. And I know, Temple, you've spoken a couple of times at Emergence over the years, and we're in
I
our sixth
have, and I
year.
sponsored a table, and
Yes, you did.
there's all kind of opportunities to it. You could be a sponsor at a table if you have something that fits into the subject, be it well-being, be it vitamins. I know my wife was there, and she had her table with her water systems and healthy living, and yeah, it's really a great experience. If you're going to be anywhere near Marina Del Rey in California, it's the place to be. It's very uplifting, um, validating. I would say that everybody walks away being a valedictorian
Oh, I
because they
love
have
that.
felt that's one of my words too, like woundology. Yeah, a valedictorian that they have felt real validated because caregivers sometimes need to be care receivers because it's a lot to hold a space as a healer, and that's what I felt from it, is that it was wonderful to be able to tell some stories, being grateful for some of the professionals in the room that along the way someone like them had helped me and offered support. But it was also just great feeling validated of how we're just constantly in life. We need to, replenish, restore,
Yeah,
lie
and
down in green pastures. I mean, it's
that's
part of our
right.
history, right?
Yeah, and really emergence is about a new paradigm of healing that continues the theme of what if we're not broken. And so I see a lot of healers, especially in behavioral health and addiction treatment, come into the field thinking that their job is to fix a broken person. And in my experience, not only is that not effective, but it's also exhausting. Because if I have the hero cape on, and the hero cape is I'm the one with the answers, I'm the expert, and that's why we wanted emergence, and we've successfully created emergence in a completely different paradigm. That is, what if I do enough of my own healing? What if I understand my own true nature? I can see that for my client, and then a healer becomes holding a space for someone learning how to access that,
Yeah.
that part of them that's unharmed and unharmable. And that to me is where the richness is, that's where the energy is, and that's what we do for 2 days at Emergence. And people walk out feeling so energized because we're not talking about how people are broken and how we fix them. We're talking about how we empower them to discover their own inner wisdom.
Exactly. And you can find out more about Emergence by going to,
Consciousrecovery.com/emergence or consciousrecovery.com and click on the conference tab.
and there's still time left. So if
There
you can make
is.
it, it's really worth 2 days of your life that will carry you for 3 or 4 years. I mean, we just loved it. I just took a break from it, not being in California anymore, but I get so much from it. And the people, I still have connections there. We're more social network connections now, but it's very meaningful. And now, drum roll. Uh, Tell me about the birth of Unharmable.
Yeah, so around that same time when we were in the midst of COVID in 2020, Jeremy Miller and I started having conversations about how we can provide some support for the existential pain that we saw people in. We had, things around race emerging. We had people in fear for their life, health. We had polarization around to vaccine or not vaccine, and all the stuff that was happening in
Yes.
the world. And we wanted to be a voice for something really different in the midst of that, not who's right and who's wrong, who's bad and who's good, but how do we discover a different way of being with this. And Jeremy, what happened is we were in a cafe sometime in the summer of 2020, and he said, if you could distill your three books, because I had Conscious Being, Conscious Recovery, and Conscious Creation at that time. Creation hadn't yet actually been published. It was due to be published in the spring of 2020, but I paused it because of COVID for a year. Just it had been written, it was already ready. And he said, if you could distill all of your work into one sentence, what would it be? And so I paused and I went within, and the sentence was so clear. There is a place within each of us that is unharmed and unharmable. And as soon as I said it out loud, we said, "Oh, this is something we want to explore." So we launched a movement, Unharmable. At the time, we did like an unharmable course. We were doing some things. We were doing bracelets, I'm unharmable. And it really is about discovering and living from this place of essential beingness instead of the belief in the brokenness. And that got externalized in the world with all the polarization and continues to. So, how can we have a different point of view? And so then about a year ago, I launched Unharmable Talk Show. And now we're launching the Unharmable documentary, which will come out soon.
So let's break that down a little bit. So I love the word unharmable, and I love that whole aspect because as a soul, we are full expression of life. And what we know about healing is energy comes first, then comes manifestation. And I love the buildup of that yes, so the energy is kind of likened to, if you need a everyday story, it's like you've been lying in bed with a real big cold, and you got the tissue paper over there on the coffee table, and you got the drops, and you got the nose spray, and it's like one day goes by, two goes, three goes by, and you're like, you just have like this awakening, like, I am so done with this. And you throw the sheets back and you're like, made it new. made anew in the spirit of life. You're so energized. You're so ready. Bring it on. And that to me is that space. There's many other great examples that would override that one, but that's kind of the essence of it because you put the energy into that looking around and going, there is this part of me that is absolutely unharmable. It is life, it is energy, it is love. It's like da 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 can't touch this da 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 can't touch this. So it's that. And I love what you're doing with that. Well, with your talk show that you've been doing, you a wide range of guests, anyone in particular? Is it more people in the health field? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's really a conversation series. We do release it as a podcast and on YouTube. It is a talk show. I really
Okay.
wanted to bring together diverse voices. It has been primarily people who work in the addiction treatment field or the behavioral health care field, or people I know from the spiritual realm. Like I've had several guests from Agape, which is one of my spiritual homes. And it's really just a conversation about what you're saying that so many healing paradigms, kind of like emergence, are starting with what's broken about the person, just like we see in recovery circles, what's broken about you. And we're inviting a different possibility. What's whole and complete underneath all of that? So it's this interesting balance of honoring and recognizing the pain that we get to celebrate in a way. And I know that sounds really strange, but addiction is running from pain. So recovery is really leaning in and allowing it to be part of our transformation while also holding a greater possibility or a greater truth that
Yeah.
underneath all that, there's still this whole and complete person. And the energy of that essence is so healing. And we know that in New Thought. And so much of the medical establishment and the behavioral health care establishment hasn't quite caught up to that yet. And I get to be one of the voices that say, what if there's a different possibility here?
Right.
We know that spirituality often gets misunderstood. Spirituality to me is this unharmable essence. It's that core principle of unity. There's one power and one presence active in the universe and in my life. And to really know that and experience that changes everything. So that's really what the conversation on unharmable is.
I love that. I love that. And now it's led, it's like we always say, it's like I received a vision years ago. Do the work, the path is straight. And every now and then I'm just in my personality, like determined to make it crooked. But I want to go over here. I want to go along the Mississippi River, because our roads do that here. You're just driving straight and all of a sudden you go, "Rrr." But, I want to make it my way. But the higher way is really is do the work, the path is straight. And you've done that beautifully of allowing, the power of allowing just one thing leading to another, and being in the flow of it. And what is coming to you, that reciprocal energy of a law that's always working, you kind of lean into it. And so now you're doing a documentary. You have different people from all walks of life, right, as part of that. And
That's right.
what else about that? Tell us, tell us, tell us.
Well, along with everything happening, one of the things that I feel strongly about, and my experience has shown me what you're saying, is to do visioning. And I use Michael Beckwith's visioning process. Our friend Michael, he's so wonderful, and he's created a framework that really works for me. It's actually part of the conscious creation process. I
Mm-hmm.
do an acronym MOVIE, MOVIE, and that V is that visioning step. Once we've done enough clearing, if you will, making peace with the past, overcoming some of these core false beliefs that we've been carrying, to be quiet enough to listen to inner wisdom, to listen to that unharmable place, these messages come through that are so much greater than anything my mind could create. And when I was early in the visioning process, I'm just going off of what you said because I so deeply resonate. I would catch a vision and then I would immediately interpret how it needed to look and then go get it, go get it. I'm a
Oh,
go
yeah.
getter.
Oh,
And so
yes.
learning how to sit with instead of go get, right? Instead of a go getter, let's be a sit with her. Let me sit with that. And
That
sitting
one's good.
Well, thank you. I love it. It's almost like not quite as good as Woundology, but we'll work on it. But
Yes.
from that vision came this idea of doing something where 12 unique voices share about their own life experience of discovering the unharmable
Yes.
place and also the many people they've worked with. So that's what we're doing to be announced soon when it comes out. We're very excited.
Oh, well, I am just I get always so motivated after talking to you, my fellow Leo, and just the energy. And for everyone listening, you can go to tjwoodward.com or you can go to consciousrecovery.com/emergence to find out more about the 2 day energizing, emerging spirit coming through you. And you are just a great human being. And I definitely know the world's a better place because you're in it. And I'm so grateful that you have been on the intentional spirit. And for those of you, if you would please take the time and share our show with other people because, love wasn't put in our heart to stay. Love isn't love till we give it away. So share some love, okay? And we love and appreciate all of you and the unharmable aspect that you have within yourself. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you so much, Temple.
What a gift.